I hope I'm doing everything right. Welcome to Evidence-Based Audio Engineering and Education, number 132. And this one is, am I back on YouTube? I think I am. It's showing me on the Restream dashboard that I'm still going. So in case you missed that episode, YouTube had banned me for showing the same, it's really hard to say, the same peer-reviewed, statistically significant, double-blinded, placebo-controlled studies that they were pushing, that Google and YouTube were pushing. They said that I was spreading medical misinformation and banned me. And so the YouTube is protecting the anti-prevention types, the people who want to put an end to the Backstreet Boys reunion tour, and they're censoring medical science in general, like they always have. We see science channels getting nailed all the time on YouTube in favor of religion or political ideologies when science conflicts with it. But in this case, while we have a global problem going on, it's really bad that YouTube is on the side of the science and medicine deniers in favor of all the quacks and conspiracy nuts. That sucks. But I appealed. They refused to hear my appeal. I've got 2 strikes on my channel now, 1 more, and I'm gone from YouTube forever this time. I don't, last time we had the demonetization, but I've given up on that. But this is why I'm always so vocal about censorship in any sort. I don't care. Even if you are a nut, I'd rather you got to talk and didn't go hide in some corner like whatever some of these alternative platforms are. And it's sad that we don't really have a good alternative to YouTube. Anyway, you guys are already facing all sorts of problems as artists with YouTube, but you also might be finding that it's the greatest thing that ever happened to you. So kind of a double-edged sword. But I think I'm back on YouTube. Whew. So last night I tried to do some live streaming with the XR18. If you guys don't know what this is, it's a digital mixer by Behringer. There's a Midas version. There's similar things from PreSonus and what's the one everybody's using right now? Oh man, I forget what it is. It's the QU32 or something like QU16. I forget which brand it is, but a lot of Soundcraft's got one. A lot of brands have their own digital mixers. You control them with the tablet or phone or a computer over Wi-Fi. It's very, very similar to what we were doing 10 or so years ago with the Reaper Live test setup. Where we were the prototype where we stuck a computer in a rack and had a laptop controlling everything over Wi-Fi while our kids were playing. And the XR18 isn't just a digital mixer, it's also an interface. And I do live streams out of my big room where I have all my recording equipment, and it's pretty easy. You're pretty much listening to the recording stream, so awesome. And I can actually mix it in my control room, so I can get some pretty good isolation and get a pretty good mix going out to the live audience. And remember, the audience online, they need to hear something different than the audience in person does. The audience in person can hear the acoustic sound coming out of the drums. They can hear the amplifiers and things through the air. And they can hear the crowd. But those people who are online, they get none of those things. Oh, sorry. So we have to add some mics for the drum overheads, get the whole drum set, even the cymbals that I have so much trouble with. And make sure the amplifiers are getting through there, and make sure that whatever the crowd's hearing, you guys can hear over online. And it worked pretty good. In order to monitor it, I sent... So what I did anyways, I'm taking the pre-effects signal from each mic preamp and sending it to Reaper on different channels. I can put effects and mix it there, and then send it back through 2 of the USB returns, and I have that going out the monitor output, which again is separate than the auxes, which is where we put our monitors. This is a specific monitor output that's actually got a 1/4 inch and a volume knob, so I can hear it on headphones. It's not the greatest mixing environment, but what I should have done is just hit record, and then I could work on the drums and stuff while I'm in here. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be close. And that also tells you that you can make a very good live recording setup as well. This unit's got 16 mic preamps and 2 line inputs. And if I really needed more than that, I could, I could use an X32 or something. Sorry. Or whatever this new one is 16 expandable to, I think it's Allen and Heath. You can expand it to 32 channels. Let me take a look at that real quick. Sorry about that. Yeah, the QU16 or the QU32. I think it ends up about $4,000 in order to do it. I might be cheaper just to get an M32 or something and handle it that way. But whatever it is. So you could record, you could live stream, and everything's pretty good. Of course, you're still running into the same old problems of sending audio from one program to another. But in this case, I'm using Reaper through reroute to get the OBS, and then I'm using virtual audio cable to go from OBS monitor out into Restream's input. I could forego that and just send the output of OBS to have it go through an RTMP server, but never mind all that. Just basically, I had to make a loopback. There's no loopback on the X-Air 18 that I can think of. You sort of could make one with the X32 or M32 maybe. We really need more loopbacks, but I use virtual audio cable to do this. It seemed to work okay. It's a problem. It's still a pain. It's still, you're not sure you're going to hear what you want to hear. And, of course, for doing this stuff, you need some isolation. So I'm standing there right next to the band with headphones, and I can turn them up pretty loud, but it's a hard way to mix it. So, being that I'm doing the live stream mix in Reaper, I could conceivably control Reaper remotely and just go sit in my control room and go over the Wi-Fi to it. That might be a way to go. It's actually not a bad idea at all now that I think about it. But I could just I could move the whole computer away. I could move the whole mixer someplace else. I've got a long enough snake. It kind of doesn't matter. So you do need to get some sort of isolation so you can get an okay mix and you can test this stuff. But actually, I was pretty happy with how it was working. So one of the things was we wanted to get a webcam in there, or a camera in general. I tried using the phone as webcam thing, but it's just too blocky. I got a USB webcam, but the problem with how far you can make a USB extender before it starts screwing up. I might look into getting an active. Former guest Tim Gray was talking about active USB cables. Let's take a look at that. So that might make it so you can put a webcam pretty far away. So USB cables from Redco. Where's active? Active USB active extension cables and extenders. Because we can't just use. I don't know what it was. I guess it's power or it's something else that if you don't use an active cable after like 15 feet, those webcams really don't want to work. And I tried it, and they didn't work well at all. So here's this one says it's an active extension cable. Let's see what it means. Mail on others, it's used to extend the distance. Unlike passive extension cables, this USB active extension cable has bus-powered circuitry, which enables it to reach distances beyond the length limits of standard USB cables. That's interesting. I'm going to buy one of these. They don't cost much money at all, but I don't know that they're actually going to work. It says 35 feet. 35 feet A to A active USB extension cable. 50 feet. Wow. Remind me to buy one of these things. I'm just going to add this to the cart, and I'm going to move this to the side. This might be good. So, we're having trouble getting the camera far enough away. This would do it. That's actually cool. So let's think about that next time. But in general, everything worked pretty well. Restream with their weird pricing scheme and messing up how many times during this show. Previous episodes. Hopefully it's working right now. I'm looking at Melon again. If there are alternatives, I still would like to know. But there's Melon app. It's from the guys who make the guys from Streamlab, I think. The guys who make their own version of OBS or sell a different version of OBS or something like that. I can't remember if this thing had chats. Yeah, it has chats. So this may be the thing I want to use instead. We shall see. I bought the Pro version. I didn't end up liking it back then, but I think they're changing some stuff. So the other one, of course, is vMix, but I'll still need to go through Restream or something like that for vMix. So I don't know. Or I could just concentrate on one platform and just use that one and don't use anything else. But who knows? That's something to think about when you're doing these live streams. How are you getting out to all these different platforms? And the hard ones are Instagram, for instance. Like, how are you going to get to Instagram? There are, of course, ways to get from the computer to Instagram, even live. Otherwise, there'd be a lot of I don't know how to say it. Entertainers that weren't on that platform. I mean, that's why they're doing what they're doing, because they can get on there live from their computer. They wouldn't have a chance of doing what they need to do from a phone. What I was thinking of doing was using an auxiliary set of the XR 18's outputs, aux 5 and 6 or something, and sending those out to an 1/8-inch jack or something that can go to Instagram on somebody's phone. So we'll need one of those phone adapters, or maybe I'll use a tablet that can do it. I have a tablet that could stream, hopefully, while it's controlling the mix. That's probably not a bad idea. But again, that tablet would then have to be in the exact right place as a webcam. So probably need to make some long extension cables and whatever else. So it's still a pain. I wish we could use Restream to go straight to Instagram. But if you guys have ideas, let me know, because I would love to have an easier way of doing this. Okay, so we're going to be doing a lot more of this stuff. This looks like a really good way to do things. So something from my past, something back in the day. This was my reason to exist, right? Somebody asked the question: is moving to a Switchcraft TT patch bay with D subs a decent upgrade? And further, he said, I think I can more easily connect my outboard gear with the selection of D subs. I asked about the Flock audio digitally controlled one, but didn't get the replies I expected. Will upgrading to a 64 or 96 point Switchcraft TT patch bay be a functional and sonic, even if ever so small, upgrade from my cheapo Rian and Behringer 1/4-inch Hosa connected setup? Cleanliness and minimizing noise of any type added by a patch bay is the driver. So if you guys don't know what patch bays are, back in the day, we used to have these racks with zillions of holes in them. Amateurs would use 1/4 inches. The same thing you have like on a guitar cable. It might be a balanced one, so an actual tip ring sleeve cable. But the studios, the professional places, would have these things called TTs, tiny telephone, and they look kind of like 1/8-inch jacks. They're a little bit bigger, and the patch bays were built out of those. Patch bays were so that you would have instead of going back behind your equipment and plugging in and out cables, you would wire all of your gear to the patch bay, usually outputs on top, inputs on the bottom, and that way all of your gear would be accessed by you right at your mixing console, and you could take these patch cables with the just male to male, and you'd plug them in. I want the output of this thing to go to the input of that thing, and you could create your chains that way. And that's really how you did business back then. And there were lots of different ways to wire them. Some of them were called normaled, so that the top row normally goes to the bottom row, so that if there's things that you plug in a lot, you don't have to repatch them because they're already going there. There was half normal, where it was going to the bottom, but if you plugged into the top, you could make a parallel send, and if you plugged into the bottom, you would break the normal. You would now go in that way. Also, you could take out extra gear that somebody brought in, and you just take the outputs of that, convert it to TT, and plug it in. So you'd have lots of XLR to TT adapters, things like that. This particular one, the guy wants to use with D-subs, and D-subs are a type of connector. It's a DB25 connector. In this case, it's a DB25. There's different sizes of them, but they're like a pinned. I don't know if I have a D-sub in here that I can show. Thankfully, I really hope I don't, but I swear I saw one not too long ago. They are notoriously hard to solder and notoriously unreliable. I mean, I soldered so many things in my life. Jeff Harris actually gave me a tip about plugging them into each other, and then that way at least they wouldn't melt apart, but they still were just absolute nightmares to wire. The ones that we used were Elco, which was another thing. It's still a nightmare, but they use these really expensive gold pins, and you would crimp them with a special thing, then you'd solder them. Or, you know, there's all these fights between crimping versus soldering, or both. And then they went into a big giant connector. You plug these things in. Basically, you could plug in, with the ones we used, 24 balanced connectors at a time. And, you know, you might even have the wiring pin out in your head because you had to do so many of these things. I don't like that this thing's DB25, but that's what it was. Some of the new Focusrite mic preamps have DB25s on the outputs, on the analog line outputs. I think the Claret maybe does. Maybe even one of the ones I have, actually. And so there are companies like Hosa and stuff that make adapters. They make a DB25 to XLR, or DB25 to quarter inch, or whatever. So it's not super bad to end up having to use those. If I had to solder them, I hate them. But if you're already buying something that has them, fine. But the cleanliness, yes, patch bays clean up everything. But he's already got a patch bay, even though it's a quarter inch. The quarter inch ones are pretty unreliable in my life, anyway. But minimizing noise, maybe. If your patch bay is made really well, and now, especially if you had an unbalanced patch bay before or whatever, I don't really think, if everything was made right, you're probably not going to hear any better noise performance, honestly, sadly. And in fact, because you can fit so many more things in there. So if you had a triple normal patch bay, that's 24, 48, 96... whatever 96 plus 48 is how many connectors you got stuck in a place that used to only have 24 of them. So you got a lot more density. You might actually add noise from there. But, you know, it wasn't really a problem for us back in the day. The cool thing was some of these things had switches on them. And I remember back in the day, even Behringer had this, but theirs was unbalanced. There are switches on the top. So in order to normal patch bays, you would have to connect these you'd have to solder in these tiny little wires. It was so hard to wire patch bays, but that was what I did more than anything else, so I was okay at it. But you would have to rewire them if you wanted to change it. These patch bays had a switch on top. Some of them had cards where you could flip them over, but there were some with switches where you could switch on the top between open, parallel, full normal, half normal, that kind of thing. That's pretty cool. So we're going to look at that in a second. Somebody mentioned Dante, and if you remember the very beginning of this show, probably episodes 2 or 3, something way back there, I tried Dante. Dante is a protocol. It was meant to be a whole new way of using Ethernet as your audio interface and stuff, and it really works good for some live sound applications and installed sound, but for a recording format, there was so many problems with it. It was so unflexible, and it added latency, and it seemed like there were some artificial dongles that way added to the price. Switching to a USB system from RME and just going straight to ADAT was so much better. It just blew that performance out of the water. I don't recommend Dante unless you really know what you're doing. I know there's plenty of people who are having good luck with Dante, but telling somebody Dante instead of a patch bay, no, I do not agree. I don't recommend this. So this company, Redco, they had this, here it's got a DB25s on it. They have a product called the Redco R196 D25PG DB25 96 point TT patch bay. So this is their patch bay. It's looks like one of our patch bays from back in the day. It's got 2 rows rather than 3. They're paired, which is cool. I really like when they're paired. It's got D subs on the back. But the coolest part is on the very top they have a so there's like a legend on the patch bay itself. When you're looking from the back, you can tell if it's full normal or half normal. I wonder if you can tell from the front. And you can unground them as well. This is pretty nice. So you can go non-normaled, half normaled, or full normaled. And then for the ground, you can do isolated, vertically strapped, or ground bus. This is actually really cool. I don't know how much these things cost. Like I say, the only problem for me was the D-subs, but even then, that's not bad. I'm trying to figure out how you switch the patch bays around. Let's see. Programmable grounding normaling switches are easily accessed from the top of the chassis. Where's the top of the chassis? I see. Oh, maybe this is the top. Yeah, maybe you throw switches here or something. This is pretty cool, whatever it is. Oh, I see. They are switches. Wow, this is way easier than getting out and soldering them and stuff. So, looks good if you really want to go for that. So, but I was interested in what is this digitally controlled patch bay, because that was something that we used to talk about. There really were digital controlled patch bays back in the day, or electronically controlled patch bays. They had these relays that would switch in and out. I'm looking at 32 point. So what does that mean? 2 rows of 16, maybe? Let's see. Input 1 through 8, 9 through 16. Right. Okay, so 2 rows of 16 for $1,650. So $1 per stereo pair, I guess, or no, sorry, $100 per stereo pair. And it looks like it's got some front panel ins and outs too, which is kind of cool. As far as I know, this thing says you can control it with Mac or Windows, so you would probably have some kind of program that lets you set up your routing in there and then just hit a button and switch between normals and half normals and whatever. I'm not sure if it actually changes where you can go from one point to another. I don't think you can do that, but if you could, that would be awesome. Let's see. Control over patch bay assignments and routing. No audio is ever converted to digital. Yeah, I'm not sure if this actually changes, like if you can route 1 to 8 or something, or if it just changes whether or not it's normal or half normal or whatever. I think you might actually be able to change this. Oh, and it's got phantom power. USB controlled. That's pretty interesting. $1,600. So if I was still using patch bays, I would actually love this thing, I think. But I don't do that anymore. I know. Happy to debate it, but I'm pretty much using the same mic pre's for all my instruments. They're just all going into Focusrite Octapre's or whatever, and I'm perfectly happy with that at this point after having $5 billion worth of mic preamps back in the day. Looks like all these things, and like, actually I tried to get a helmet today for my bike. This one was please be advised this item is currently 4 to 5 weeks back ordered once ordered. Ouch, man. There's still such a long order time. We had that chip shortage. We had the chip fire in Texas. We had some man, guys, you gotta censor yourself so bad now. There were some problems with moving boats in a certain area. So, it's still really hard to get some stuff. Like, say, bike helmets, guitars, cars, car parts, microphones, you name it, Yeah, so we still are facing a lot of shortages in a lot of areas. I was watching people trying to order brand new Focusrite mic preamps, and they were having a lot of trouble finding the store with them. I know I had a lot of problems finding a Guitar Center with my Octopre Dynamic, you know. Okay. I ordered a pair of Focusrite 3rd generation 4i4s. Interface, it's a 4 in, 4 out interface. The 3rd generation ones have loopback. The Solo doesn't. And I don't know why. Like, manufacturers, you could add a mess of loopbacks virtually. Why don't you? And why couldn't you put it on the 2-channel? I think Motu does. Motu has a 2-channel interface that has loopback, as far as I know. But this 4i4 has loopback, and the reason I need loopback, like just like we were talking about the live streaming, you know, the Windows apps or Mac apps or whatever, they don't talk nicely to each other. So I could use one pair of loopbacks from the loopback, and then I could also plug line outputs 3 and 4 into line inputs 3 and 4 and use that as a loopback. As far as I can tell, I'm pretty sure I can do that. And that's what I'm going to be using that for. So I'm going to retire the Scarlett Solo. But again, and even RME, you know, RME, you can make a loopback on any channel, but it's a hardware. You lose a channel of hardware. RME, you could, is there an issue? Why can't you add virtual loopbacks? Please, 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 RME, add some virtual loopbacks. If anybody can do it, it's you. And maybe you can force everybody else to do it. But you guys like Focusrite and stuff. No reason not to have a loopback on the 2i2, right? No reason not to add more than one loopback. We could really use them. So please, manufacturers, think about that. Or, you know, if the app makers would just go to ASIO, we could all use reroute and other things like that. But, you know, geez. We did have a guy who was asking about an IR loader for GarageBand, and of course the suck in me is going to say stop running GarageBand. And really, guys, it's cool that you can do stuff in GarageBand, but remember that you may need to communicate with the outside world, and when you do, it can be a pretty big problem. So the faster you can get out of GarageBand, the better, or find pay for the ways that you actually can export things from GarageBand. That'd be just as good, I guess. But why would you want to do that? Just stop using that. But that's just the snark in me. And then it looks like Reason 12 is out. So if you guys are using Reason, it's out now, $400 for brand new, I guess. The crazy part is, and we talked about this before, but it's not going to have Rewire, right? Rewire is dead. Rewire is canceled. And we still don't know really what's going to replace it. I mean, there's Reroute, which was just made so that Reaper could have Rewire before Propeller Heads got back to us about the licensing. I've been looking through the forums, like, what are you going to do? Looks like the DAWs that already support Rewire are still going to keep supporting Rewire, but yeah, I don't know, guys. Like, what are we doing? You know, again, Rewire is also necessary because we don't have enough loopbacks. So again, loopbacks would help a lot, but I think Rewire also carried MIDI. Yeah. So Reason 12's out, but you're not going to have Rewire with it as far as I know. So I really want to hear what you guys are doing in order to get around that. So that's all I got for this week. So we'll see you guys next week. But please let me know about that. Let me know what you're doing for Rewire.